Josephine, I'll start with you. What was the starting point for this film, and why did you particularly want to tell the story of Shirley Jackson?
Well, the starting point happened long before I got on the project. Sarah Gubbins and our producer Sue Nagel had fallen in love with, I think Shirley's writing, and also with the book Shirley. It's by a fictional book by Susan Scarf Merrill, and they had spent 4 years actually working on a script. And then, so by the time I got on board, it was just this whole world and these really, really filled out characters that I was so excited to dive into and try to help bring to life. But for me, I think the passion behind it was Shirley's writing. Shirley is such I think as a filmmaker, I like to kind of dip into the subconscious, move from a reality into an imagined reality into flashbacks. And I think a film like this, where there are so many realities kind of colliding, was such a good mesh for my kind of style. And also Shirley's work. I think when I discovered Shirley's work, I was just like, wow, what a pathway to follow, what a mentor, because she just moves from kind of a third person perspective into a first person perspective. You almost don't know that she's done it. So suddenly you realize you're in a subjectivity that you can't trust, which is so exciting as a reader. So yeah, so I think I fell in love with her work, and that was a big reason that I was so attracted to the project. But also, honestly, I think the script was just a terrific script.
Did you know anything about her personality before or either her life story or her personality before you made the film?
I did not know much about her personal story before making the film. I had read some of her work, but I didn't know the personal story. So it was so exciting. Her real life is beyond fascinating, and I think she was a kind of a revelation and way ahead of her time in some ways, and then also very much like oppressed by, I think probably because she was ahead of her time, like fairly oppressed by her time and by the relationships and the expectations of her. But she was the breadwinner of her family as a writer in the 40s, which is amazing.
Elisabeth, how did you get involved with this project?
The script first. I was actually producing something with Sue Nagel, one of our producers, and she's been a bit of a mentor for me as a producer. I've known her for a few years, and so I guess they thought of me for the part and sent me Sarah Gubbins' incredible script, which I fell in love with. And like Joe said, we all just responded to this beautiful thing that she had written, this adaptation of the novel. And then I kind of, was like, great, I'll wait to see who passes on this. And then maybe I'll be next in line. And luckily I was. and they offered me the part. And I remember very, very clearly it was a very kind of one of those kind of Hollywood moments where I was in a car and I got the email saying that I was going to get the offer. And I was like, I just, even after 30 years of doing this, you still can't believe sometimes that somebody thinks that you can do a particular part, especially one that is so incredible and so challenging. And so I was thrilled is an understatement. So that's how I came to it. And then me and Joe and Sarah and Sue and all got together and started talking about it. And I was welcomed on as a producer as well. And yeah, here we are.
I'm going to go back to Josephine now. Josephine, I know Elisabeth can hear you, but what was it about Elisabeth that made you think that she could be your Shirley? What qualities does she have, and how did she impress you in that way?
I think I said this to you when I first met you, Lizzie, is like I just believe her in everything. There's never a doubt that there's no distinction, I think, between at times when you're watching an actor work, you feel the actor. I never ever have felt like that watching her in a movie. I feel the character like exuding through the movie, and there's it's just this utter faith and confidence that the person that you're going to be working with is can fully dive into the kind of well of the character. And I think this is such a specific and complex character, and it is and I think one of the things we were so excited about actually in asking Lizzie to join us on this journey was that it's different. We haven't seen her play this kind of role before, and I just feel so grateful because she did just such an epic job, and exploded the universe of Shirley like out through those magic eyes.
A question for both of you. Now, Shirley is not the most sympathetic of characters. Now, how did you approach that, both as an actor and as a director? Because she's fascinating to watch, but how did you know how to gauge that when you have an audience to interact with?
I guess I think you would agree, Joe. I think the first step is sort of not to think of her as unsympathetic. I know what you mean as a viewer, but she's difficult to take, especially in the beginning. But I think we didn't think of her that way. I think we thought of her as very strong and very smart and very particular, and going through a really difficult time. She's coming out of, in our story, she's coming out of the lottery. It was just came out. She kind of became famous and infamous and has all this notoriety, which is somewhat positive and somewhat negative. And that was a new experience for her. And she's now kind of trying to make that, that sophomore effort after the lottery, even though it wasn't the first thing or second thing that she wrote, but she's trying to kind of go, okay, I made, it's like when you make a really good movie or a really good TV show, and then you're like, oh shit, what do I do next? And I think, we could identify with that. I mean, Joe is coming off of Madeline's Madeline. I've definitely made things where I've been nervous about what the next thing's going to be. I think we've all felt times when we didn't want to leave the house. We've all felt times when we didn't feel like talking to anybody. And so I don't think we thought of her as unsympathetic. I think we felt extremely sympathetic towards her and towards what she was going through. So I think that's kind of what we kept an eye on. And for me as an actor, I can sort of never play a character with any judgment. Just kind of doesn't work out well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you enter the movie through Rose's eyes, it was really important that you feel that it was important for, I think, the arc of the whole film, that at first that you're fascinated by Shirley, but that you don't know how to feel about her is actually, I think, really important for the audience, that you're kind of like, do I love her? Do I hate her? Do I love her? Do I hate her? And that Rose kind of goes on that dance for the first, like, really 30 to 40 minutes of the film. Is sort of like, is this woman going to eat me alive? or can I like trust her with my child, with my soul, with my heart, so that dance was so important. And I think it was exciting. The way Lizzie played her just like brought that kind of mystery and darkness and ferocity and also like vulnerability out, so that you were really excited to, I think, go on the journey with Rose of discovery. And also, I have to say, like, Odessa also did such a beautiful job kind of holding that space and receiving Shirley and giving us that pathway of like how to feel about Shirley for that first part of the film. And she's such a wonderfully mature young actress. She was only 20 when we shot that film, and I think her performance is so much more just older, much more mature than that.
Well, back to Elisabeth. How did you find the character? I mean, did you have to read a lot about her? I mean, is there anybody you could speak to? I mean, how did you get a handle on this very sort of slippery character?
A couple of paths, I guess. Michael Stuhlbarg is obviously one of the world's greatest living actors, and he's also somebody who has played characters that are, have existed before. So he is much better at that kind of thing than I am. So I really followed him, and I think we all did, and kind of, the research that he did, and he actually, went to Bennington, and he sort of spoke to people that knew her and knew him, Stanley, and so I very much followed him. I was like, I'm just going to do whatever it is that he's doing, because he's very, very good and he knows how to do this. So we sort of followed him, and we read a bunch of letters that we got from Library of Congress between Stanley and Shirley, and between them and their friends. And there's a great biography about Shirley that was very helpful to us. So we kind of just took from everything, took as much as we could. And then I guess the other way, the more sort of personal way, which is actually more how I work, is I really identified with her in a lot of ways. I think I'm more like Shirley than I think a lot of people realize. I had a couple of close friends see the movie, and afterwards like text me and be like, okay, so we know that that's actually who you really are, right? Like, that's you when no one's looking. And I was like, yeah, I know. So I think I identified with her. I identified also with, you spoke about, an unsympathetic character. And I think I was really, I love the idea of, a man plays, not to make it about that, but, a man plays a character that is grumpy and doesn't want to talk and is a bit challenging. And, we call him, he's James Bond, like there's so much room for men in film and television to be quote unquote unsympathetic. And it's much harder for a woman to do it. And so I really loved, and people have done it, but I really loved the idea of getting to play a character who doesn't give a what about what anyone thinks about her. I thought that was going to be really refreshing.
You talked about the relationship with your co-star Michael Stuhlbarg. I'm very fascinated by the relationship between Shirley and her husband. What would you both like to say about that in terms of what it feeds into the dynamic of the films? It's a very strange kind of, it's almost like an S&M dynamic between the two of them. They can't live with each other. They can't live without each other. How did you see them coexisting?
I'll start, but it was pretty. We did feel like, from what we had read and from what we had learned, that that's kind of how they were. I mean, they were incredibly in love. They were very passionate about each other and about everything. They worked really hard. Their son, who we've had the pleasure of meeting and speaking with, one of their sons, said they worked all the time. They were constantly writing. And Shirley had incredible respect for Stanley's opinion, and Stanley had incredible respect for Shirley's work. And they were great parents too. That's the one element that isn't in our story, because of timeline stuff that we were adapting a book. We didn't include their kids, but they were great parents and they had a great family. And by all accounts, she was a great mom. But they had this very sort of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf at times relationship. But they were also really in love. And I think that was really important to Michael and I to preserve. I think that's what the last scene is very much about, when they start dancing together. We wanted to make sure that we got that.
I don't think I have much to add. I thought that was very well said. The dance of the two of them, I think, is something that really was captured so well in the script already. And then that Lizzie and Michael just kind of like, I think in a way you two also kind of fell in love as collaborators. There was just such a deep mutual respect that actually it's funny that it sort of almost mirrors like Shirley and Stanley in a way. There's like this deep mutual respect, and you two are such different performers and you have such different processes. And so to see that kind of literal marriage, of the two of you kind of like working together on screen, I just think, for me, my job was really just like, get out of the way, like try to like, these are two of the greatest actors working right now. Like, let's just let them do their thing. And it was funny. Like, it was fun in our rehearsal process. Like, because some scenes did take a bit of work, and there's so much dialogue in the film that it was kind of, I tried not to just like plop it down and let it be like, okay, face, but like kind of create a sort of movement dance so you would have something to follow physically. But all the scenes with Shirley and Stanley, it was just so exciting because we would get in a room together, and like, I just thought my job was easy. Like, I just got to stand in the corner, and Lizzie would be like, okay, let's try this. And like, no, this doesn't feel right. And Michael would be like, I just feel like I should be sitting here for this part, and it was their process came to them, like, which I think was very unique to the two of them, so seamlessly and gorgeously, and in a way very much in the vein of Shirley and Stanley, who kind of like just had this fluidity. It's like a school of fish. Like, you just kind of like, they can maneuver around anything in a way that at times is a bit evil, but also like just gorgeous to watch. Yeah.
What would you like people to take away from the film? What kind of debate would you like to think about Shirley, or think about their own lives, or about their own imaginations? What would you like people to take from the movie?
Beautiful question. I'm a big fan of trying not to dictate what people take from the movies that I make. I really like making work that the audience, I think I work hard to create an experience that there's not one interpretation of. And I would hope that this film allows for deeper conversation. Like that if anything, you walk out of the film and then you get to go talk about it for an hour with your friends who saw it with you, that's what I would hope, that the takeaway is questions and excitement and intrigue and a deeper conversation around the real people. I guess that would be one thing, is I hope that the curiosity is sparked about the true Shirley Jackson, and that people go hunt down her work and want to dive into a story. Because our whole inspiration for the film was, how do you make a film that feels not necessarily like a biography of Shirley, but that feels like we put the audience into a Shirley Jackson story. And so, I think if anyone loved this movie, then please read her work. She's such a stunning female writer that I think should be a household name. So hopefully eventually she will be.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Joe took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think that I agree with you. I don't like to dictate necessarily what anyone takes from a film, but if there was anything, I do think that what we tried to do was less very much an anti-biopic, and it's more of a Shirley Jackson story. And I think that her work is incredibly prolific, and obviously we had the opportunity to read almost everything because of this film. And I think her work is the basis for so much of what future authors did, and also for a lot of filmmakers did. The tone that she has is very reminiscent of things that we saw many years later. So I think that for me, I hope that people are intrigued by her work, which is so expansive. She has a breadth of work that is just incredible. And from short stories to novels it's just amazing. So I hope that people go, oh, you know what, I'd like to read some more of Shirley Jackson, because I think she really did something that I don't think anyone ever did again.
I think that's all we have time for. Thank you very much, Elisabeth, and thank you very much, Josephine. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And thank you for the movie. It's terrific.
Thank you so much for having us, and thanks Lizzie for being here. Thank you, Damon. Thank you, London Film Festival, for curating our film, and thank you to our audience. I'm so excited to get to share this with you.